Hello, my name is David Warburton, and this is a video of me unpacking a standard. So the standard that I chose was a Common Core standard for 8th grade ELA literacy. So the title of it is CCSS ELA Literacy RL Reading Language 8.2. And the standard reads, determine a theme or central idea of a text and analyze its development over the course of the text, including its relationship to the characters, setting, and plot. Provide an objective summary of the text. So, within this standard, we'll start with the verbs. The verbs are determine, analyze, provide. And the nouns are determine the theme, determine the central idea, analyze the development of the characters, well, including development of the text, or its development. It says analyze its development, so analyze the development of the theme or of the central idea. But then this can also be applied to the development and relationship of the characters, setting, and plot. So then you have all those nouns as well. And then provide a summary, an objective summary. Objective would be the adjective, but objective summary of the text. So summary is the big noun there. And then from there, obviously you have many different lesson plans that you can do. So one could be on themes and on central ideas, understanding what they are, how to identify them, maybe how you can create one on your own. So there's a lesson there. Analyzing development. So you can do this for characters, setting, and plot, and you could do that. I mean, you could have 3 different lessons for that, depending on how long your lessons are. Provide summaries, so you can go into what is a summary, how do you write a summary. A really good tool for this is using a story map. So like starting at the bottom, going up and down like that, like exposition, rising action, climax, falling action, and resolution. So if you can get, if you can incorporate that into a lesson, that's great too. So anyway, the reason I'm saying all this is because it asked for at least 5 lessons. There's definitely at least 5 lessons in there. So from those verbs and nouns, absolutely. So then let's move on to the big ideas. So one big idea from this would be to understand the deeper meaning of a text. You do that with the theme and the central idea, right? What is it trying to tell you? Why are we reading this? What's the key takeaway that I can learn from this text? The next big idea would be how to understand how the text develops. So getting the students to understand that the text isn't just there, that it's not just a thing, that someone wrote it and they wrote it for a purpose, and they wrote it in that order for a purpose, and that these things led to these things that led to these things, that these characters and these settings, that they were chosen for specific reasons. How do those things interact with each other, and how does it develop over time? So that's a big idea to understand. Just the development of the text, essentially. Then the third big idea would be understanding the relationship between character, setting, and plot, and then how these influence each other. That would be really important as well. And then some essential questions from those ideas. Number 1, how can you identify the theme or central message of a text? Why do characters change? What does this tell you about real people? So getting the students to compare the characters in the text to people either within their own lives or historical figures. How do events influence each other? What else influences these events? How so? What does that tell you about history? So essentially getting the students to understand that there's no such thing as just a random event that is just placed there. That event is shaped somehow through the settings and characters that are involved in that event and the events that preceded it. So getting the students to understand that within the text, but then also getting them to understand that through the progression of history in our real lives and how that takes shape. Okay, so the skills that that would be good to learn here for this standard would be identifying and explaining the theme or central idea, understanding character development, how settings influence a story, and the ability to construct a story map. So using, like I said, those parts of a story map. Okay, some projects that you could do. You could do both of these. I have two here. Both could be done either in person or online. If it's in person, you can do it with paper. If it's online, you can do it with PPT. But basically, one would be practicing the skill of the story map. And to do this, you could do a plot reboot. So, for example, let's say you have like the Three Little Pigs story. They recreate that, so it's still the same kind of story, but with different plots. So maybe it's the Three Little Pigs in space, right? You change the setting, you change some of the characters. Now the events are a little bit different, but you get them to like reboot that story, and just getting them to understand how those events would progress. Another project that you could do would be analyzing a character from the text using specific criteria. So that might depend on how the teacher chooses to analyze a character. But using specific criteria to analyze a character from a text, and then allowing the students to create their own characters based on that criteria that they just used to analyze that character from the text. So some critical thinking skills there in the analysis part originally, and then some creativity skills afterwards when they're taking that criteria and trying to build their own character. And then assessments. So thinking about assessments, for this type of class or this kind of unit, I think it's best to just have the assessments be all project-based learning. Would be kind of fun. So the formative assessments would be like mini projects for each lesson. So let's say you're trying to identify themes. Okay, you give the kids fables or like mini stories, right? Children's books that they would read when they were little. All right, what's the theme of this, right? See if they can identify it. And you can put them in groups or put them, so that would be kind of fun. Another thing would be then that they could make their own, right? So now that you've read this, can you make your own? What would be your theme? Make a children's story kind of thing. So that's an example of a mini project, and you could do that for each lesson. Then a big project would be kind of more of a summative project for maybe the entire book or text. So this would be, all right, we've just read this book. Now this is where you need to put a whole story map together and analyze the characters. You give a big presentation, and from this big project we can see, okay, have they developed these skills? Are they applying their knowledge to this text? And are they adequately, proficiently explaining their ideas? Okay, so that's all I have. Thanks.